My name is Sandy, I'm 27 years old, and until that night, I thought my family's biggest problem was that we argued too much during holidays. I was standing at the sink, scrubbing dishes after a late dinner, when I heard my front door slam open so hard it rattled the frame. I nearly dropped the plate in my hand. It was my sister, Laura. She's 3 years older than me, 30, usually put together, the kind of woman who could walk into a room and make everyone notice her. But what I saw that night was not my sister. Her face was blotchy, her makeup smeared into dark streaks. One cheek was red and swollen, and she was crying in that kind of silent, gasping way that scared me more than if she had been screaming. I didn't even ask what happened at first. I just put the plate down, grabbed a towel, and held her while she shook in my arms. When she finally caught her breath, she whispered the words that made my stomach drop. Mom told me to leave forever. She said I'm not her daughter anymore. At first, I thought maybe Laura had misunderstood, that things had just gotten heated. But then my phone started ringing. I didn't even have to look at the screen to know who it was. Mom. I answered, still holding Laura, and before I could say a word, Mom's voice exploded through the line. Don't you dare let that ungrateful girl stay with you, Sandy. She betrayed this family. She deserves nothing. I froze. My mom wasn't just angry, she was vicious. The venom in her voice didn't even sound like her. I'd never heard her speak like that about anyone, not even Dad back when he left. Laura's tears wet through my shirt as I listened to Mom rant, my heart pounding harder with every word. I could have said yes, could have agreed to throw her out and keep peace with Mom. But instead, I took a deep breath and said, she's staying here. With me. Then I hung up. What I didn't realize in that moment was that I had just chosen a side, and that choice was going to change everything I thought I knew about my family. After I hung up on Mom, the silence in my apartment was thick, broken only by Laura's uneven breathing. I poured her some water and sat her down at the kitchen table. Tell me what happened, I said gently. Laura stared at the glass like she didn't even see it. Her hands were trembling, and when she finally spoke, her voice was raw. She slapped me, Sandy. Twice. And then she told me I was dead to her. That I needed to pack my things and never come back. I blinked at her, stunned. Our mom had always been strict, always sharp with her words, but this? I couldn't wrap my head around it. Why? What did you say to her? Laura looked away, ashamed. I told her I wasn't going to keep her secret anymore. That I was tired of covering for her. The air in the room shifted, like something heavy had just been dropped between us. What secret? I pressed. She hesitated, then looked me dead in the eyes. Mom's been taking money from Grandma's account. Thousands of dollars. I caught her transferring it last month. I confronted her tonight, and that's when she lost it. She said if I opened my mouth, she'd make sure nobody in this family ever spoke to me again. And then she hit me. I felt my chest tighten. Grandma had been dead for 5 years. That account was supposed to be split between me and Laura when we turned 30. I leaned back, my head spinning. So, all those times she said the inheritance was tied up, that the lawyers were delaying things. Lies, Laura whispered. She's been draining it. For years. I suddenly remembered every time Mom had complained about bills, every time she had guilt me into helping out. And Laura, she'd been the one Mom leaned on the most. It made me sick to my stomach. That night, I promised Laura she could stay as long as she needed. But deep down, something inside me had shifted. This wasn't just about sheltering my sister. This was about finding out the truth. And if Mom really had stolen from us, if she had turned our whole family against Laura to protect herself, then I was going to make her pay. The next morning, I woke up with this heavy feeling in my chest, like I'd stepped into a mess bigger than I could handle. Laura was still asleep on my couch, her face puffy from crying. For a second, I thought about pretending everything was normal, making coffee, going to work, ignoring the storm that was brewing. But then I remembered the look in her eyes when she told me about Mom's theft. I couldn't just let it go. When Laura woke up, I handed her a cup of coffee and asked, if Mom really took the money, how do we prove it? She rubbed her temples. I already tried. I saw the transfers on her laptop, but she caught me snooping. I didn't get screenshots. The only thing I know for sure is she's been moving money into some personal account. Do you remember the account number? I asked. Her eyes flickered, and then she nodded slowly. Part of it. Enough to recognize it if I see it again. That was all I needed. I grabbed my laptop, and together we started digging. We pulled up old bank statements that Grandma's lawyer had emailed years ago, trying to piece things together. We checked our own accounts, the ones where the inheritance was supposed to land someday. Nothing. Empty. It was like trying to solve a puzzle with half the pieces missing. Then Laura snapped her fingers. Check Mom's tax records. She always scanned them and emailed them to me when I used to help her with paperwork. Maybe the account shows up there. We searched her old email, and sure enough, there it was, a savings account in Mom's name that we'd never heard of before. The balance wasn't listed, but it was enough to confirm Mom had been hiding money. I stared at the screen, my jaw tight. She's been playing us. All these years, she's been making us feel guilty for not helping her enough, when she was sitting on money that was supposed to be ours. Laura clenched her fists. She wanted me gone because she knew I was close to exposing her. And now she's trying to turn you against me too. I shut the laptop with a snap. Then we're not just exposing her. We're taking everything back. That was the moment the idea of revenge stopped being a thought in the back of my mind, and became a plan. Laura and I didn't rush into anything. We both knew Mom was cunning, she'd been manipulating people for years, and if we came at her without proof, she'd spin it back on us. So instead of confronting her head-on, we decided to test the waters. That afternoon, I called her. My hands were shaking, but I tried to keep my voice steady. Hey, Mom, I said lightly, as if nothing had happened the night before. I was just wondering, have you heard anything from the lawyer about Grandma's estate lately? Laura and I were talking, and it's weird that it's been tied up for so long. There was a pause, then her voice came sharp and defensive. Why are you asking about that? You know the courts move slow. It's complicated. You wouldn't understand. Her tone made my blood boil. I'd heard this exact excuse for years. I just thought maybe we could sit down and go over the paperwork together, I pressed, my voice calm but firm. It might help us all feel better if we knew what was happening. The silence on the other end stretched so long I thought she'd hung up. Then she hissed, "Don't start this, Sandy. You sound just like your sister. Always suspicious. Always ungrateful. You have no idea how much I've sacrificed for this family." And then she hung up on me. I stared at my phone, my jaw clenched. Mom never reacted that way unless she was cornered. Which meant Laura was right, we were onto something. When I told Laura what happened, she smirked bitterly. She's scared. That's good. The more nervous she gets, the sloppier she'll become. That night, we decided on our first real move, get solid evidence. If we could find a way to access Mom's hidden account, or at least document the transfers from Grandma's estate, we'd have leverage. Laura suggested talking to Grandma's old lawyer, Mr. Hayes. He was semi-retired now, but he always liked us and probably still had copies of the estate documents. If anyone could help us trace the money, it was him. I agreed, but as I lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, a darker thought crept into my mind. This wasn't just about proving Mom stole from us. This was about making sure she never had the chance to hurt us again. And for that, evidence was only the first step. 2 days later, Laura and I drove to the small office where Grandma's old lawyer, Mr. Hayes, still worked part-time. It felt strange walking into that place again. The last time I'd been there was when Grandma passed. Back then, Mom held our hands and promised she'd take care of everything. Now, I realized she'd been taking care of herself. Mr. Hayes looked older, his hair completely white now, but his eyes were still sharp. He greeted us warmly, though I could tell he was surprised to see us together. "What brings you girls here?" he asked, ushering us into his office. Laura and I exchanged a look before I spoke. "We're worried something might be wrong with Grandma's estate. Mom's been handling it all these years, but we haven't seen any updates. And honestly, we don't trust her anymore." His eyebrows furrowed. "I see." He opened a filing cabinet and pulled out a worn folder with our grandmother's name on it. "The estate was settled a long time ago. The accounts were released, and the funds transferred into a trust, split between you two, to be dispersed when you turn 30. Your mother was just the trustee, managing things until then." I felt my stomach twist. "So the money was already available?" "Yes," he said slowly. "At least, it was supposed to be. Each trust had a separate account number. Do you girls have access?" Laura shook her head, her voice tight. "We don't. Mom never gave us any information. She said the lawyers were still holding everything up." Mr. Hayes looked troubled. He pulled out a sheet of paper with the account numbers and balances from 5 years ago. The figures made my head spin. Together, it was over $300,000. "By now, with interest, it should be more," he explained. "But if you don't have access, I fear your mother may have misused her role as trustee." I clenched my fists in my lap. Misused was a nice way of saying stole from her own daughters. "Is there any way to prove it?" I asked. He nodded. "Yes. The banks will have records of every transfer. If your mother moved funds into her personal accounts, it will be traceable. But you'll need authorization, or a court order, to get those documents." Laura's voice was low and steady. "Then that's what we'll get." When we left the office, we sat in the car in silence for a moment, both of us gripping the papers Mr. Hayes had given us. "This isn't just stealing," Laura finally said. "It's betrayal. She robbed us, Sandy. Our own mother." I nodded, feeling the fire rise in my chest. "And now it's our turn. She thinks she's untouchable. But she has no idea what's coming." That was the moment I knew, we weren't just victims anymore. We were hunters. The papers from Mr. Hayes burned a hole in my bag the whole way home. Every time I thought about Mom's smug voice telling me not to start this, my grip tightened on the steering wheel. Laura sat in the passenger seat, scrolling through her phone like she was piecing together a war plan. "We need the bank records," she said firmly. "That's the nail in her coffin. If we get proof she transferred that money into her personal account, it's game over." I nodded. "But how? The bank won't just hand that over to us." She gave me a sideways glance, a little smirk creeping onto her face. "They might, if they think we're her." I blinked. "You mean, pretend to be Mom?" "Exactly. You know her social security number, right?" I did. Mom had made me memorize it years ago, just in case. At the time, I thought it was responsible parenting. Now I realized it was just another way she controlled us. That night, we started small. Laura called the bank's customer service line, using Mom's information. I listened on speakerphone, holding my breath as the rep asked security questions. Laura nailed every single one: Mom's maiden name, the last 4 digits of her driver's license, even the color of the car she drove. When the rep asked how he could help, Laura's voice stayed calm. "I'd like to review recent activity on my trustee account. Could you email me the statements?" My heart pounded as he put her on hold. Finally, he came back. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Jenkins, but we can only send that information to the email address we have on file." Laura shot me a look, her mouth twisting. "Of course. No problem." She hung up before he could ask more questions. "Well, that didn't work," I sighed. "Not yet," she corrected. "But now we know what we need: access to Mom's email." The thought made me nervous, but it also sparked a thrill of determination. Mom's email was her fortress, her whole world ran through it. If we could get in, we wouldn't just find bank records. We'd find everything. Over the next few days, we watched her. I called her, played nice, even offered to stop by with groceries. She brushed me off every time, paranoid and short-tempered. She knew we were circling closer. Then Laura got the break we needed. "She's sloppy," she said one night, grinning as she waved her phone. I saw her type in her email password once, years ago. It's the same one she uses for everything, Faith Family 1970. I laughed bitterly. The irony. We tried it. And just like that, we were in. And what we found waiting in that inbox was worse than either of us imagined. When the login went through, Laura and I just sat there staring at the screen, half disbelieving it worked. My heart raced as I clicked through Mom's inbox, my hands trembling on the trackpad. It was all there. Years of emails. Some of them were the usual, church newsletters, chain forwards, complaints to the cable company, but buried in between were the ones that made my blood run cold. The first thing we noticed were the statements. Every month, the bank had emailed her a PDF summary of the trustee accounts. The balances dropped steadily year after year, line by line. Transfers into her personal savings. Transfers into her checking. Even credit card payments. Grandma's money, our money, keeping Mom afloat in secret. Laura scrolled further, her jaw tightening. She's been draining it since the year after Grandma died. Look at this, $10,000 transfer in 2019, $7,500 in 2020, $15,000 just last year. I felt sick. She told me she couldn't afford car repairs that year. I paid half for her new transmission. Laura gave a humorless laugh. She didn't need your help. She just wanted more. But the money trail wasn't the worst part. The real dagger came from the emails she sent to relatives. Dozens of messages, painting Laura as unstable, disrespectful, even violent. She told cousins and aunts that Laura had stolen from her, that she was manipulative, ungrateful, a danger to the family. And I believed her. I remembered how distant some of our cousins had grown, how nobody asked about Laura anymore. Mom had been poisoning them against her for years. I sat back, my chest burning with fury. She's not just a thief. She's a liar. She's destroyed your reputation to cover her tracks. Laura's eyes glistened, but her voice was steady. No. Not anymore. Now we have proof. We downloaded everything, bank statements, slanderous emails, even a few messages that hinted at debts Mom was hiding from the rest of the family. We backed them up to a flash drive, then to the cloud, triple securing them like treasure. By the time we finished, it was almost 3 in the morning. I closed the laptop and looked at Laura. "This isn't about surviving her anymore," I said. "This is about ending her power over us. We're going to show everyone who she really is." Laura leaned back, a fierce smile tugging at her lips. "Then let's make a plan. She wanted me out of the family? Fine. Let's see how she handles being the one cast out." And just like that, our revenge wasn't just a fantasy. It was a blueprint. We didn't rush. Revenge, we knew, had to be careful, precise. If we came at Mom all at once, she'd scream, twist the story, play the victim. She was an expert at that. But if we dismantled her piece by piece, using her own words and actions against her, she wouldn't have anywhere to hide. The first step was the family. For years, she'd painted Laura as the black sheep. Our cousins barely spoke to her, and when they did, it was with pity or suspicion. If we wanted to flip the narrative, we had to show them the truth. Laura and I sat at the kitchen table one night, drafting an email. Simple, calm, no drama, just facts. We attached a few of Mom's emails where she called Laura unstable and dangerous, then right beside them, we included screenshots of the bank statements proving Mom had stolen from us. I remember staring at the draft, my finger hovering over the send button. Once we do this, there's no going back. Laura's voice was firm. Good. I don't ever want to go back. We hit send. The fallout was immediate. By morning, my phone was buzzing non-stop. Aunts, uncles, cousins, all of them shocked, some furious, some demanding answers. I ignored the calls at first, but finally, I picked one up. It was Aunt Linda. Sandy, is this real? Did your mother really take that money? I didn't hesitate. Yes. Every word is true. And Laura never did any of the things Mom accused her of. She was trying to cover her own tracks. There was silence, then a sharp sigh. I knew something was wrong. Your mother always had a way of twisting things, but I never thought, she trailed off. I'm so sorry, honey. I should have believed Laura. By that evening, the family group chat was chaos. Relatives demanding explanations. Screenshots being passed around. Some defending Mom, others tearing into her. But the damage was done, the perfect image she'd built was cracking. Then Mom called me. Her voice was raw, almost panicked. How dare you air family business like this? You've humiliated me. Do you realize what you've done? I kept my tone cool. We didn't do anything, Mom. You did this to yourself. She screamed something incoherent and hung up. Laura looked at me from across the room, a satisfied fire in her eyes. Round one goes to us. But I knew this was just the beginning. Mom wasn't the type to go down quietly. And if she was already this shaken, her next move was bound to be desperate. Mom didn't waste time striking back. 2 days after the emails went out, I came home from work to find a letter taped to my apartment door. My stomach dropped when I saw the letterhead, a law office. Inside was a formal notice. Mom was threatening to sue me and Laura for defamation. I almost laughed. The irony of her calling us liars after what we'd uncovered was almost too much. But Laura wasn't amused. She crumpled the paper in her fist, her jaw tight. She's trying to scare us. Make us back down, she said. And it worked, at least for a moment. I felt that familiar dread, the kind I always felt growing up, when Mom's voice went sharp and dangerous. But then I remembered the flash drive sitting in my desk, full of her emails and bank statements. She can't sue us for telling the truth, I said firmly. If she pushes this, she'll be forced to show her accounts in court. That's the last thing she wants. Laura's expression softened into a grin. So we let her dig her own grave. But Mom didn't stop there. She started calling family members one by one, crying on the phone, saying we'd hacked her, that we were unstable, that we were destroying her reputation out of jealousy. It was the same old tactic, but this time, people weren't buying it. A few cousins even forwarded me her frantic texts. One read, "They're dangerous. Don't trust them. They're trying to ruin me." Another, "If you have any sense, you'll cut them off before they drag you down too." It was almost pathetic. Almost. Then things turned darker. One night, Laura swore she saw Mom's car parked down the block from my apartment. Another day, I found a note slipped under my door in her handwriting, "Traitors don't win." That was the moment I realized this wasn't just family drama anymore. Mom wasn't just trying to protect her secrets, she was trying to scare us into silence. But she'd underestimated something. For the first time in our lives, Laura and I weren't scared little girls anymore. We had each other. And we had the truth. So we decided to go bigger. If she wanted to fight dirty, fine. We'd bring her down in front of everyone who mattered. Which meant it was time to take our evidence not just to family, but to the law. The morning after the note appeared under my door, Laura and I sat at my kitchen table with 2 cups of coffee and the flash drive between us. Neither of us said much at first. We didn't need to, we both knew this had gone too far to handle on our own. "We need a lawyer," Laura finally said. "Someone who can make this official." If Mom wants to drag us into court, fine. Let's see what happens when the bank records and those emails are read out loud. I nodded, though part of me still felt a pang of guilt. She was our mother, after all. But every time I thought about Grandma's money, about the lies, about the slap mark still faint on Laura's cheek, I reminded myself, she made this choice, not us. We booked an appointment with a local attorney, a woman named Michelle Grant. She was in her 40s, sharp-eyed, and the kind of person who didn't waste time sugarcoating things. We laid everything out, the inheritance, the bank statements, the smear emails, even the threats. When we finished, Michelle leaned back in her chair and tapped her pen on the desk. Your mother doesn't have a case for defamation. Truth is a defense, and from what I'm seeing, you've got plenty of truth. If she pushes this, it's only going to expose her more. Relief washed over me, but then Michelle's tone shifted. But you too have a case against her. Misuse of a trust, breach of fiduciary duty. Depending on how much she took, we're not just talking about civil court, this could cross into criminal territory. Laura's eyes widened slightly, but there was a spark of satisfaction there too. So we can actually make her pay? Michelle nodded. Yes. But it's not going to be easy. She'll fight. And from what you've told me, she's vindictive. You need to be prepared for her to get uglier before she goes down. We signed papers that day, officially hiring her. Walking out of that office, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time when it came to Mom, power. For once, she wasn't the one in control. But Michelle's warning stuck with me. If Mom already thought we were traitors, what would she do when she realized we had the law on our side? That night, Laura and I sat in the dark living room, a storm rattling the windows outside. This is it, she whispered. We're actually going to war with her. I looked at my sister, the fear and fire both alive in her eyes, and squeezed her hand. Then we win. It didn't take long for Mom to find out we had hired a lawyer. Michelle had sent her a formal letter, laying out our intent to pursue action for mismanagement of the trust. 2 days later, my phone rang. It was Mom. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something in me wanted to hear her voice. When I picked up, she didn't even say hello. You ungrateful little snakes, she hissed. You think you can destroy me? You think you can take me to court and win? You don't know who you're dealing with. I didn't answer. I just let her rant. You're pathetic, both of you, she spat. Laura's always been weak, and you, Sandy, you're stupid enough to let her drag you down with her. If you go through with this, I swear, you'll regret it for the rest of your lives. Then she hung up. I sat there with the phone pressed to my ear, shaking. Laura watched me from across the room, her face pale but steady. What did she say? She's scared, I whispered. That's all I heard in her voice. Fear. But scared people are dangerous. And within a week, Mom proved it. First, my landlord called me, saying someone had been asking questions about whether I was behind on rent. Then Laura's boss pulled her aside at work, telling her he'd gotten a strange call from a concerned relative questioning Laura's mental stability. It was Mom. Of course it was. She was trying to cut us off at the knees, ruin our reputations, isolate us the same way she'd done before. Only this time, we weren't children. We documented everything, every call, every attempt to smear us. But the worst was when Laura found her car vandalized outside my apartment. The tires slashed. A note on the windshield, "Stop, before you get hurt." Laura stood there in the rain, staring at the shredded rubber, her fists clenched. She's lost it. I swallowed hard, my stomach twisting with both fear and rage. Then it's time we stop playing defense. Because if Mom wanted to fight dirty, she hadn't seen anything yet. After Laura's car was vandalized, something inside me hardened. Mom wasn't just trying to scare us anymore, she was trying to destroy us. And I realized that the only way to end this was to hit her where it hurt most, her reputation, her money, and her control. Laura and I sat down with Michelle, our lawyer, and laid out everything that had happened, the calls to our jobs, the threats, the vandalism. Michelle's eyes narrowed. Good. Every one of these things helps your case. She's showing a pattern of harassment. But if you want to end this faster, we need to get the truth out beyond just family squabbles. That was when Laura leaned forward and said, "Then let's go public." At first, the idea terrified me. Airing dirty family laundry to the world felt extreme. But the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. Mom had built her whole identity around being the respectable, self-sacrificing mother who carried the family. If the truth came out, that she was a thief, a manipulator, a liar, her empire of lies would crumble. We started small. I posted a carefully worded message on Facebook, tagging close relatives. For everyone who's heard rumors about Laura, here's the truth: Mom stole from us. We have proof of thousands drained from Grandma's trust. She's been lying to this family for years, and when Laura tried to speak up, Mom smeared her reputation. We've hired a lawyer, and soon the evidence will speak for itself. I attached screenshots of one of the bank statements and one of Mom's nastiest emails. Not everything, just enough to spark questions. The post spread faster than I expected. Old family friends started commenting, shocked and horrified. Distant cousins messaged me privately, saying they believed us. Even people from Mom's church started reaching out to Laura, apologizing for the way they'd treated her. And Mom? She lost her mind. She called me 13 times in one night, left voicemails full of venom and rage. Then she tried posting her own defense, calling me and Laura liars, saying we were trying to destroy our own mother. But the difference now was simple: we had proof. And she didn't. The more she shouted, the worse she looked. Laura and I sat on the couch that night, watching the storm unfold online. For the first time in years, I saw something new in her eyes: peace. "She's unraveling," she whispered. "Everything she built is coming down." I nodded slowly, gripping her hand. And we're not done yet. Because the next step wasn't just exposing her. It was taking back what was ours, legally, publicly, permanently. Once the storm hit social media, there was no putting it back in the bottle. Family who had ignored us for years were suddenly texting apologies. Friends of Mom's, people who used to gush about what a strong woman she was, were asking questions she couldn't answer. But the real fight was just beginning. Michelle filed our lawsuit officially: breach of fiduciary duty, misappropriation of funds, and harassment. Mom was served at her house, and Laura's coworker told her later that day she had seen Mom screaming on the porch, tearing the papers to shreds. "She's cornered," Michelle told us. "That means she's going to lash out harder. Be ready." And Michelle was right. Within a week, Mom had hired her own lawyer and tried to flip the script, claiming we had hacked her email, that we were mentally unstable, and that we had drained the accounts. But here's the thing about lies: they don't hold up under evidence. And we had plenty. In discovery, Michelle presented the bank statements we'd downloaded, clearly showing transfers into Mom's personal accounts. The timestamps lined up perfectly with receipts from her car purchase, her home renovations, even vacations she'd bragged about on Facebook. When her lawyer tried to argue, Michelle dropped another bomb: the emails. We had dozens of them, filled with her own words. Emails smearing Laura, emails boasting about using the girls' money to pay off debts, even one message where she admitted to moving funds before they get suspicious. I'll never forget the silence in that conference room when Michelle slid those across the table. Mom's face went white, her jaw tight. For once, she had nothing to say. But even cornered, she didn't give up. A few days later, I came home to find an envelope shoved under my door. Inside was a handwritten note: "If you loved me at all, you'd stop this. I'm still your mother." I stared at the paper for a long time. Once, those words would have broken me. But now, they felt empty. I burned the note in the sink. Laura watched the ashes swirl down the drain and whispered, "She's slipping, Sandy. She knows she's losing." I nodded. Good. But we're not stopping until she's finished. And that finish line was closer than ever. The day of the court hearing, I thought I'd be nervous. Instead, I felt steady, like all the fear Mom used to put in me had burned away. Laura sat beside me at the long wooden table, her back straight, her face calm but hard. Mom sat across from us. I almost didn't recognize her. Her hair was messy, her face lined with stress, her usual smug confidence gone. She looked smaller than I'd ever seen her, but her eyes still burned with that same cold hatred. When the judge called the session to order, Mom's lawyer launched right in. He painted us as bitter daughters, claiming we'd hacked her email, twisted innocent bank transfers, and were trying to ruin our mother out of spite. I clenched my fists under the table, but Michelle squeezed my arm lightly, signaling me to wait. Then it was our turn. Michelle stood, her voice steady and sharp as a knife. Your Honor, this isn't about bitterness. This is about betrayal. Their mother was entrusted to protect her daughter's inheritance. Instead, she stole it for herself. She handed over the exhibits, bank statements, emails, even testimony from Mr. Hayes, Grandma's old lawyer, confirming the accounts were meant for us. The judge flipped through the documents, his expression darkening. When Mom was called to testify, she tried to put on her performance. Tears, trembling voice, claiming she was just trying to survive. She said we didn't understand the sacrifices she'd made. But then Michelle hit her with the emails. Line after line of her own words, use their money again, hope they don't notice. Laura is unstable, no one should believe her if she talks. Her voice cracked when she tried to explain them away. The courtroom was silent except for the sound of her excuses falling flat. When it was over, the judge leaned forward. Mrs. Jenkins, the evidence here is overwhelming. You abused your role as trustee, misappropriated funds, and defamed your own daughter to cover it up. I'm ordering a full accounting of the trust and restitution to your daughters. Further charges may be considered. I felt Laura grip my hand under the table. For the first time in years, she smiled, a real smile, not one shadowed by pain. Mom just sat there, shaking her head, whispering, no, 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 like if she said it enough times, the truth would vanish. But it didn't. The truth was finally out. And we had won. The weeks after court felt surreal. For so long, Laura and I had lived under Mom's shadow, flinching at her words, bending ourselves just to survive her anger. And now, the spell was broken. The judge ordered a forensic accountant to go through every transaction Mom had made with Grandma's trust. The final report was staggering, over $230,000 siphoned away into her personal accounts. Vacations, home renovations, a new car, even donations to her church that were nothing more than a way to polish her image. The court ruled that the funds had to be repaid to us in full. Part of it came immediately from the assets she still held, and the rest would be taken directly from her future earnings. She couldn't escape it, not this time. Word spread fast. Relatives who had once looked at Laura with suspicion now avoided Mom like the plague. Friends from her church stopped returning her calls. Even the pastor she used to brag about supporting turned his back when the truth came out. For the first time, Mom was the one isolated, cut off, whispered about. And Laura, the sister who had been cast out, slapped, called ungrateful, was finally vindicated. One evening, a few weeks after the judgment, Laura and I sat on my balcony with glasses of wine. The sun was setting, painting the sky orange and pink. I still can't believe it's over, I admitted, watching the light fade. Laura smiled softly. It's not just over. We won, Sandy. She can't touch us anymore. She can't twist the truth, she can't buy loyalty, she can't scare us. She looked at me, her eyes bright. We took everything back. I let out a long breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding for years. And we did it together. Laura raised her glass, and I clinked mine against hers. For the first time since we were kids, I felt safe. Free. Revenge hadn't just been about money, or even justice. It had been about reclaiming our lives from someone who thought she owned them. And now, standing side by side with my sister, I knew we'd never let anyone take that away from us again.